Welcome back to FS22 and another video on precision farming, and today we're going to have a quick look at grass work. So let's roll the intro and get to work. Before we get stuck into the details of doing grass work, a couple of things that I want to suggest to people and talk about. Yes, there are issues with the current version of precision farming as of the day of and the day after release. Giants are working on a hotfix, but if you're worried about breaking your save game, do what I've done. If you want to play with precision farming and learn about precision farming, set yourself up a little farm with some little fields, some stupidly big equipment, and just have play with it. Get used to it, experiment, learn what works, learn what doesn't work. Yeah. The other thing is, if you're new to the channel and you've just found it thanks to these videos, then please click the subscribe button and turn on notifications. I do lots of tutorials on different things with Farm Sim, and I also do Let's Plays. So let's get to work. So I have up here a tiny grass field that is ready to harvest. I have done everything except roll it. I forgot to roll it after I planted it, and it is slightly over fertilized. It's still showing as perfect, and that's because I had it all ready to go, but it needed plowing, so I plowed it in and replanted it. So we're a little bit high on the nitrogen, but we are still perfect. And what I want to look at is what happens as we mow the grass to the pH and the nitrogen and the environmental score. So if we go down here, the environmental score for this field is right down at 50 at the moment. That is based off of, so environmental score updates after you harvest. So it's showing from a previous, I'll do a separate video on that, but it's showing that the nitrogen is wrong. pH is good. Weed control is neutral, you don't get weeds in grass. So, and then we've got soil sampling is good and tillage is neutral. So let's jump in the crone and get to work. I think this mower should just about be big enough to cut this bit of grass. As I said, set yourself up a save game with a bunch of big equipment and just experiment. So this is my first time of doing grass work with precision farming enabled in FS22, and there are a few things that we're going to test. So we're going to see what happens to the nitrogen and pH, as I said, as we mow the grass. We'll have a look at what happens to the field scan information. Does it start to degrade? We're going to have a look at what happens with the Grassland roller, which I have over there. Does that still fertilize grass? Is it now useless? So I'm not worrying about going across the other fields. So this is a little test farm that I've set up in the corner of Elm Creek, because it's got some really nice different size fields. So you can see our yield map is updating, and for most of the field we're getting a pretty good yield, and that is just the yellow bit is just where the soil type is not particularly good. So that's grass mown. As I say, stupidly big kit, you can get jobs done really quickly, you can get through a bunch of tests. So I'm just going to quickly, actually let's just go into the field first and we'll see. So the pH has come down a quarter of a unit, which is different to what Giant said on their website or in the data, which is kind of confusing. And the nitrogen has dropped massively, so the nitrogen has dropped by 180. And we're sitting in harvested. If we go into the map, see that our data is still good. And if we go there, our field score is now, or our environmental score is now 69. So it's gone up. Looks like it is nitrogen has gone up. I'm still learning what order they come in. So it's nitrogen. Nitrogen has come up. pH is good. Weed control is average. Soil sampling is good. And tillage is average. So I'll just quickly get this collected, and we'll come back and we'll have a look at some options for replacing the nutrients. So that really didn't take very long at all. As I said, you use stupidly big kit, small fields, you can just learn how precision farming works. So what we need to do now is we need to get the pH, we could get the pH back up we'll have a quick look at the field info. I think it still says it's good, so we might actually just leave that. We might leave the pH, but we definitely need to work on the nitrogen. So we have a few things that we're going to try. We're going to try the Grassland roller, which we have waiting, which in base game would get you your 1 fertilization state that you need as well. We're going to need to try manure and solid fertilizer. So yeah, nitrogen bad, pH is good, so we're going to leave the pH at good. We just have a quick look in here at our nitrogen levels. You can see that we're sitting at most 40, so we're between 0 and 40. Let's jump in. This is a modded case tractor that is available on my Discord, and it runs on electricity. It's just the one from Giants that I've modified to run on electricity just because I could. Yes, it has stupidly big wheels on it for this job. It was ploughing a moment ago. So let's see if the Grassland roller has any effect now. So it is doing something, but it's not showing up on the precision farming menu. So let's do a couple of rows, and we'll see what the map looks like in precision farming. So I have not tested any of this. I've set it up and jumped in because I wanted to learn along with you guys. And you know, with a new mod like precision farming, it's all just about playing and testing and reading. And yeah, a lot of this stuff is very similar to FS19 as well. So if you played precision farming on FS19, you'll be pretty comfortable with how it works in FS22. I almost forgot which version, which number in the 20s it is. I'm doing this before the hotfix has released. I'm not sure when that's going to come out. It might come out before this video does. You can still play the game with version 1.4. It just stops you using some mods. So let's have a look, shall we? So we've gained a little bit of nitrogen, I think. Yeah, I think we've gained a little bit of nitrogen there. Yeah, I think we're getting about 15. But let's just have a look down this strip. So along here, we're sitting at between 15 and 30. So we'll just run along here again with the Grassland roller, and we'll see if that goes up. So yeah, we're looking at between 15 and 30 running along that strip that's just next to what we've rolled already. If you're new to the channel, I crash a lot. You can probably hear that I'm playing on a keyboard, and that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah, if you want this electric case tractor, it's on my Discord in the recommended mod section. You'll need to scroll up a bit, but can we see that changing in the map? We'll jump out in a minute and run back along that strip, and I think it's adding a tiny bit of nitrogen. Not a lot when you consider that grass needs up to about 200 units of nitrogen, and it may not be an effective solution. It's just on that on. No, we were just too late hitting the worker. So let's run back along, and no, we're not actually seeing any difference there, I don't think. So it seems like that's not working, which is kind of frustrating because, you know, fertilizing grass with a roller is a real thing. We'll just stick this on a worker and let it finish up. I'm just going to move this kit out of the way, and we'll have a look at some manure, I think. I'm only going to concentrate on the fertilizing one time round. I'm then just going to run through some cycles mowing the grass, and we'll just see what happens to the data. We'll check the environmental score as well, I think, as we go through. So we're up to 69 now. I'm guessing that's going to improve as we go through if we're using the right type of fertilizing. If I stand here, so we're at 10 units of nitrogen, and we'll let this go past and we'll see what we are once it's gone past. Yeah, so that roller's having no effect. Yeah, okay. Got a nice John Deere 6R over here, so we'll do a little bit of muck spreading, see what that can do for us. I'm going to do a more detailed video on manure and digestate and slurry once I've played with it a bit more. But what I will show you is once you're in the field, come on, pick up there in the field. So we've got a precision farming bar on the left, and you can see currently we're at about 25 kilograms of nitrogen, and as default manure is going to add another 60 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare. Now what you can do if you've got a lot of manure on hand is you can press the comma key to deactivate the automatic application, because for grass you're going to need quite a lot of nitrogen. You're up in the 180s to 200s. So if you've got a lot of manure, you can use the K and the M key to push this up really high, and then as we fertilize with manure we're going to apply a lot more. It's saying at the bottom it's really high because it's picking up a reading from the field next door. You can see in the mini-map it's actually getting us into the hundreds, which is where we want to be. I think we can do this as a 2-pass job. But I'll cover manure in more detail in a separate video. This is just looking at how it works with grass work. You can see, yeah, we're getting up to about 135, 150 units of nitrogen. And that just means we're going to use less mineral fertilizer. If we jump out now and run back over to the field, we can see in the bottom right hand corner that our pH is good still, obviously, because that's still okay, and our nitrogen is bad, but it's, you know, it's up on okay in a couple of places. The other thing to mention, I guess, is that grass ignores over fertilizing, so you could just then come along with maybe a slurry or a digestate spreader and chuck a bunch of that on top as well. I'm going to use the solid fert spreader over here on the John Deere 6M. And the nice thing about using a solid or a liquid fertilizer spreader is you can get it to automatically do the application then. So we drive onto the field, you can see it's now going to need to add about 55 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare to get us up to where we need to be. And move over across because this is quite a wide spreader. It's also quite a heavy spreader when it's full. So the little 6M doesn't really like having it on the back completely full. But what we should be able to do now is get that up to a perfect value in one pass, pretty much. Yep. So the spreader will now adjust the amount of nitrogen it needs to apply to get us to perfect fertilization. Ignore the sensor on the front. I've not looked at how they work yet, and I'm not entirely sure they are useful yet. Still learning that one. They don't do what they did in FS19, that's for sure. They won't give you an updated field scan. Now they might give you updated information on the nitrogen as it degrades. You can see now we're back up to perfect fertilization and good pH. So that's the basics of looking after your grass. It'll regrow now and then you can mow it. And I'm going to do that off camera, and I'll come back when we finish mowing and we'll look at what the field state looks like a second time round. But just finishing up going over the grass a second time, got a worker running in the big M just to speed things up a bit. It's about what's happening to the ground, not really worrying about gameplay. So we'll just get this last bit of grass picked up and we'll jump out of the tractor and have a look at what's happened to the field and the scan data. This will be the second harvest on here since I think I purchased the field map on here. And one of the things that I'm wondering now that I've been pondering stuff is whether, I might test it in this video, it might be in a future video, whether the crop scanner will update the scan for you. So although it can't do a fresh scan, maybe it can update the nitrogen and pH levels for you once you've done the scan. That would be kind of cool. So let's have a look at what's happened again. So our pH is down a bit. It's now only okay, so we probably want to apply some more lime, and our nitrogen's gone all the way back down. So if we just clear this run, I think what we will do is we will get ourselves a lime spreader, which I have over there, and we'll put a bit of lime on the field, bring that back up. Let's just have a look in the precision farming menu. So yeah, data is still good. It's maybe starting to darken a little bit. And what happened with FS19 in precision farming is that rather than the data just disappearing, it would just fade and fade. And you know, in that, it was good enough that you could just keep farming it, and you really didn't need to update the scan if you didn't want to. And particularly if you didn't play, you know, if you only played 2-3 years on a map, you probably only needed to do, for your arable field, you probably only needed to scan once. Grasslands maybe once a year, depending on how many cuts you did. But yeah, so I think Giants recommend you do this every 3 times, and basically what they recommend, and I'm going to cover this in more detail on a more detailed look at lime. I have done that quick look, but I'm going to do a more detailed look, is they recommend you apply every 3rd harvest. But they also recommend that you over apply, and that's kind of difficult if you want to use automatic application. So with FS19, I would generally apply every 2nd harvest for grass, and for arable I would probably do every harvest, because the amount of lime you use is the same, and you always want to get that best yield you can. So yes, it takes a bit of time, but you use very little lime applying every harvest, because you're just topping up that little bit that's missing, because it uses the variable rate. So you're not adding huge amounts of lime. So again, I'm going to cover that in a more detailed video on lime, because over applying lime is bad, and not applying lime is also bad. So yeah, that's the lime done. I guess the next thing we can have a look at is some slurry. And we'll just do manure again. I've got that set up. And we've still got quite a lot left. So what we'll do this time actually is we'll push it up even more. And if I need to, I will just F12 in some more manure. Yeah, we'll over apply. So we're going up to 235 units of nitrogen now, so we're going way over what you actually need. But with grass that doesn't affect it, because it's not affected by over fertilization. With grass you can also fertilize at any time, so even if your grass is grown, you could still fertilize it and get the yield boost, which is slightly cheaty. You can also apply lime at any time with those crops. But yeah, that will get us up to the nitrogen level that we need, so we don't need to bring the mineral fertilizer over. Let's just have a quick look at our environmental score, shall we? We're up to 80 now, so we have good nitrogen, good pH, weeds are neutral, and I think tillage is neutral. Yeah, so tillage doesn't seem to affect grass. So that's probably the best you're going to get on grass. But although we have over applied, because grass is not affected, we're at perfect still, so we're good to go. So I think I'll do 1 or 2 more off camera, and we'll just see what happens to the field data. So back in a bit. Okay, so this is 2 mowings later, and I'm going to jump into the precision farming menu in a moment, because we can now see that the scan data is starting to degrade. You could actually see it slightly on the last one, but it's much more pronounced now. So if I go into the precision farming menu, you can see we've got a much darker color here. So most of it is at 0 nitrogen, and if you compare the reds in field 76 to what's in field 79, they're a much darker color. So we've still got the information there, it's just harder for us to visually interpret. You can see we need to apply lime still, and we need to apply nitrogen. If we look in the pH map, we'll see the same thing, that it's the equivalent color. So again, comparing field 76, they're much darker. So I'm going to do a couple of little tests now. So you can get 3 or 4 harvests out before you might want to think about rescanning. We have the crop sensor on the front of the little 6M. I have no idea what it's working with this, but just to show you, as we drive over the field, see that it's still detecting what we need to apply to get to optimal value. So you don't need to rescan it, you could just keep going and it'll work absolutely fine. That's one of the features of precision farming, is visually it's difficult to interpret, but actually the game can still work it out. So if we now unfold the crop scanner, and we're just going to, I don't know what the working width is on this, and I don't know if this is going to even work, and we're going to do Alt-B to turn it on. Don't want that on, I just want the crop scanner on. There we go. And we'll lower it down as well, just for good measure. And I'm just going to drive down the middle of the field and see if the map updates. It's really hard to tell on the mini screen if it has or not, so we'll go into the menu in a moment and just see if it looks like it's refreshed our data. Which it doesn't. We'll run back along with the fertilizer spreader switched on as well, just to double check. They both are running now. You can see in the top left hand corner, both implements are switched on. The crop sensor is lowered as well. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. We very quickly refertilized our little grass field, but the data is still showing as stale. And the same for pH. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure what these crop sensors do, or if I'm using it wrong. But if we, so we're at 200 nitrogen. So if you compare where the tractor's parked now in field 76 with field 79, when I switch those on and off, it is very definitely a much darker color. So yeah, that doesn't seem to have worked. So what have we learned about grass work with precision farming? So every time you mow it, you lose a quarter of a unit of pH, and you can do at least 2 cuts before you need to reapply, before you're going to seriously affect your yield. We have learned that the Grassland roller does not affect nitrogen at the moment. This is being recorded the day after release of precision farming, before the hotfix. The Grassland roller does not improve nitrogen levels at this point. You can use manure, you could use slurry or digestate as well, and you could do all of your fertilizing with that, because grass ignores over fertilization. So you could do heavy application of organic fertilizer if you have lots about, like if you have a mini BGA running on your farm, for example. Or you can use solid or liquid fertilizer with the automatic application enabled. And I think that's everything with precision farming and grass work. If I've missed something, leave me a comment below. If you found it useful, click the like button. If you're new to the channel and you didn't at the start, click subscribe and turn on notifications, and I'll catch you next time on FS22.